This scientist has woken up to discover that Earth has gone through an apocalypse, and he is the last human left alive. But right as he is at the edge of insanity, he will discover a shocking truth about this situation. The sun is seen rising over the ocean in New Zealand, and just then, something strange happens, as a red light surrounded by darkness is briefly seen. A man named Zach Hobson wakes up rather abruptly in his bed, and after spending some time looking around and contemplating something, he starts preparing for his day. Zach is a scientist employed by Delenko, part of a United States-led international consortium working on Project Flashlight, an experiment to create a wireless global energy grid. Zach turns on his radio but does not receive any transmissions. He proceeds to call his office, but no one is there to pick up his calls either. He finds this odd. Next, Zach drives to a gas station and finds that no one is manning the store there. He walks into the tire shop and discovers that it is abandoned as well. He steps into the back room hoping to find someone on the job, but all he discovers is a kettle left unattended. Bewildered, Zach keeps driving and starts noticing that he can't hear or see a single person around him. Cars are left abandoned in the middle of the road, and entire homes are empty, with things like the water left running destroying property. Zach finds a truck left in the middle of the road, and he tries using its radio to contact someone, but to no avail. Next, Zach arrives in the city and finds that it is completely deserted. Driving around, he notices a fire, and when he takes a closer look, he learns that a passenger plane has crashed. He checks for survivors or even dead bodies, but finds neither, only empty seats, with the seatbelts still buckled. Zach arrives at the research facility where he works, and like the rest of the city, it is completely empty. He tries contacting the other labs of Project Flashlight all over the world, but does not get a response from any of them. He then reads a memo that explains that the consortium decided to go ahead and execute Project Flashlight earlier today. Zach hurries to the underground section of the facility and sees a message on one of the computer screens which says, "Operation Flashlight Complete." He checks the primary flashlight grid panel and discovers the rotting body of his superior officer, Perrin. Zach realizes that whatever is happening all over the world with the disappearance of the entire human population, it is definitely connected to the activation of Project Flashlight. Just then, the entire lab seals itself due to the possibility of a radiation leak. Realizing that the radiation leak could seriously harm him, Zach sets up a gas bomb to blow his way out of the lab. As he waits for the bomb to explode, he listens to some audio notes that he previously recorded. In the recording, he clearly mentions that Project Flashlight has phenomenal destructive potential, and the information related to this is being withheld by Delenko. He then makes a new recording in which he mentions that something has gone horribly wrong with Project Flashlight, and it seems that, as a result, he is now the only person left alive on Earth. The bomb explodes and Zach escapes the facility. He arrives at the local radio station where he broadcasts a message on all frequencies in which he states his address and phone number and requests that if anyone at all is left alive on the Earth, they should reach out to him. He leaves the same message on billboards and walls all over the city and goes home and waits for his phone to ring. The next day, he drives around in a police car and uses its megaphone to loudly announce his presence to any other human who might be alive like him. When this doesn't work, he resorts to loudly playing the saxophone in the streets. After several days of failed attempts at finding other humans, Zach begins to get frustrated. Next, Zach realizes that he no longer has to stay in his middle-class home. Every home in the world is open to him now. He moves into a luxurious mansion and updates his address on the radio broadcast as well. He spends the entire day picking up anything and everything that he wants at the mall in a truck. He gets some fancy clothes and eats some luxury desserts. Afterward, he decides that he wants to operate a train and realizes that there is nothing and no one to stop him from doing so. Next, Zach plays a game of snooker and acts out the roles of two wealthy men playing the game against each other. At night, Zach finds the nightwear of some woman and decides to put it on. He sees himself in the mirror wearing the lingerie, and that triggers his breaking point. He grabs a gun, and at first, it looks like he's going to shoot himself. However, he ends up shooting the television in which a reporter is talking about the importance of technological advancement. Next, Zack sets up a public address of his own from the balcony of the mansion, and he declares himself the president of the Quiet Earth. Just then, the power systems stop working, and electricity goes out in the entire city. Zack stands on the balcony in the dark until the sun rises. The next morning, Zack starts going around the city, still in the woman's lingerie, having completely lost his mind now. He enters a church and shoots a statue of Jesus. He goes around wrecking things with an axe and then gets in a tractor and destroys entire stores. At one point, he sticks the barrel of his gun in his mouth and considers ending it all, but then he decides against it. He goes for a swim in the ocean to clear his mind, and then decides to start fresh. He acquires a generator to power another mansion he's to stay in, and goes out and acquires gardening supplies in order to grow his own food. As he is doing this, he hears a very faint and distant noise which sounds like another car, but then he dismisses it as nothing. He settles into a normal routine at home and does some gardening work. It is revealed that he has set up a computer program that monitors the environment for him. While he is noticing that the ultraviolet exposure of the Earth is rising, a woman appears behind him holding a gun. Zack raises his hands, the woman lowers her gun, and the two proceed to hug, overjoyed to finally see another human being after weeks of being alone. The woman's name is Joanne, and she and Zack proceed to exchange stories of how their last few weeks have been after all of humanity disappeared. Joanne reveals that she saw a dead baby in a hospital the other day who looked like he died recently, revealing that they aren't the only ones to be left behind in the aftermath of Project Flashlight. They spend the entire night theorizing what's really happened, and Zack says that he feels like they're in a different universe now. The next morning, the two drive around and come across more dead bodies that look like they died recently, meaning they were alive after Project Flashlight was executed. As they continue driving around the city, Zack notices that it seems like the sun is pulsating. At night, they stay at a motel and discuss whether they'll find anyone else. Joanne suggests that they should look in places like prisons and mental hospitals, where people may be alive but trapped. Zack isn't sure how he feels about this idea. He asks her about their sleeping situation tonight, and she suggests separate beds, which disappoints him. Man can't even get some when he's the last man on Earth. The next morning, the two decide to split up and search different parts of the city, while keeping in touch with each other through radio. Joanne searches for people in a hospital, while Zack arrives at a university and uses their equipment to check some readings. Zack notices some fluctuation in the sun's activity, and just then, both people get a little dizzy for a second. Then, Zack notices some readings on the monitor which worry him greatly. Zack and Joanne have lunch together, and the conversation steers toward how much they miss things being the way they were. Joanne starts crying, and Zack comforts her, which leads to the two of them sleeping together. The next morning, Joanne makes Zack breakfast, and a romance brews between the two. They decide to split up and search the city again, and while Zack is by himself, he records an audio note. In the note, he says he's made a startling and grave discovery. The universal constant value of an electron's charge has changed, and not only has it changed, but it's currently oscillating between two other values. This means that not only has the very fabric of the universe altered, but it is also rapidly destabilizing. He has no idea what this will do going forward. Zack drives to meet up with Joanne again, and on the way, he arrives in a part of the city where he keeps encountering things blocking his path. Finally, as he is reversing in an alley, a truck appears out of nowhere to stop him, and a man named API comes out of the truck, pointing a gun at Zack. Appy asks Zack if he has anyone else with him, and Zack lies that he doesn't. But just then, Joanne reaches out to him on the radio. Appy forces Zack to take him to Joanne, and for a while it seems like he has malicious intentions. But when he sees the other two, he joyfully embraces them, happy to have found other humans still alive. Later at night, API reveals that at the moment the effect of Project Flashlight happened, he was being drowned. Joanne reveals that at that moment she was being electrocuted by her hairdryer. Zack recalls that he had actually committed suicide out of guilt over not speaking out about Project Flashlight despite knowing its destructive capacity. Then, Zack figures it out. The three of them survived because the moment Project Flashlight was activated, The three of them were at the moment of death. Next, API plays the piano while Joanne and Zach dance. Later at night, Joanne notices API mournfully singing in front of some graves. The next morning, API and Joanne go for a run while Zach continues observing the sun and notices that the fluctuations are becoming more and more frequent, which means that the sun is destabilizing. He calculates that the sun will collapse in a matter of days. Meanwhile, Joanne asks API why a man was trying to drown him, and he reveals that he killed the man's wife. Joanne asks him why he would do such a thing, and he just cryptically replies that it was necessary. Joanne comes back home very upset, and Zach tries to tell her about the sun, but she doesn't listen. Zach shouts at her to get her attention, and just then, API arrives and warns Zach that he is not in charge here. He threatens Zach, and Zach simply throws his recorder at API and tells him to listen to it as he drives away. Angered, API chases him, but during the ride, he learns from the recorder that the project flashlight grid is still active, and Zach believes that it is what's causing the sun to destabilize even further. AP knocks Zach off the road and is about to physically assault him when Joanne arrives with a gun and threatens to shoot them if they don't get along. The three arrive home, and Zach calculates that the initial project flashlight effect may happen again tomorrow. Just then, a bright blue light is seen, and Zach disappears for a brief minute, but he only goes outside the house. Api and Joanne experience the effect too. Zach explains that this was just a tremor, and the real effect will be tomorrow. They decide that their best shot is to blow the research facility up and turn the project flashlight grid off. AP takes them to a warehouse full of explosives, and they start loading them up into the truck. As they are preparing, Zach notices that API and Joanne are getting close, and he gets jealous. As they drive toward the facility, Zach asks Joanne who she likes more, him or API, and she doesn't give a straight answer. Zach points out that API could be a dangerous man since he killed somebody's wife, but Joanne reveals that he didn't actually kill her. The woman was his friend's wife and she fell in love with him, but when he rejected her, she committed suicide. He just blamed himself for her death, and so did his friend, which is why he was trying to drown Appy. After some contemplation, Zach tells Joanne that it doesn't matter who she picks out of the two of them. He will be fine either way. Next, Joanne rides in the truck along with API, and he pulls some bad boy moves with the truck to woo her, which annoys Zach, because he's trying to pull up next to them and tell them something important. He finally catches up and tells them that he is picking up a lot of dangerous radiation around the research facility, so they cannot get too close to it. He suggests that he has a remote control unit, and he can use it to drive the explosives truck into the facility. He just has to go back to the city to get it. While he is gone, API and Joanne make passionate love, after which API points out that Zach's remote control unit won't work on a truck that size. Hence, he will be driving the truck in himself and sacrificing his life for the other two. However, unbeknownst to him, Zach has already had the same idea, and as they step out, they see him driving the truck toward the facility. The effect happens once again, and Zach pushes the button to blow the explosives at exactly the same time. A red light surrounded by a dark tunnel is seen once again, and since Zach is at the moment of his death this time as well, he survives this effect again. He wakes up at the beach and sees some truly breathtaking and otherworldly views. There are strange cloud formations resembling waterspouts rising out of the ocean, and then an enormous ringed planet, which kind of looks like Saturn, slowly rises in the sky. Zach is shocked beyond words at what he is witnessing. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.